2021, I actually finished with a little over 11 million in premium written for the year, 10.5 funded, and I think I made about $280,000 that year.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Anderson, and welcome back to Annuity Fundamentals. And today I've got a really cool, special guest today. His name's Keith Petersen, longtime friend. And actually, he and I started in the insurance world together, and I've been trying to get him on this podcast for like the last 6 months. And the reason being is I wanted him to come on and to talk about the path that his career has taken in the insurance world. That for a lot of folks, they go on and they start with a company and they're there forever, or they start with an organization, they're there for a few months, and then they leave the insurance world. And he and I, our paths have basically intertwined, and we've landed in very similar places with different companies a decade later, but we started out in the same office, sharing a desk next to each other, and we both kind of came into the insurance world a little bit later in life. And I just wanted to talk about the path that we take to get to where we need to be. That a lot of folks, as they start in the insurance world, they don't know where they want to be. They don't know anything about it. A lot of them are forced into it. A lot of them, it's a last resort. A lot of them are, I really want to do this, the sales piece. I think I can do that, whatever it might be. But we're going to talk about this today. So Keith, thank you so much for joining with us today. Can you go ahead and give us a little bit about your background? I want to hear your career. You grew up in Portland, Oregon. You went to college. Kind of tell us how you ended up in the insurance world.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. This is fun. I know I've been wanting to get up here and be a part of this for quite some time. So thanks for the opportunity, and I'm glad to be here. So I actually started in the insurance industry at the same time you did, but my background before that was an accounting degree from college, which took me a little bit longer to get, but we made it through. And then a lot of internal accounting jobs in the medical industry, doctors' offices, management and internal accounting jobs. So after moving out of Portland, Oregon, and trying to figure out where I was going to get a job in Boise, I ran into the opportunity with the company that we worked with, and went and watched the video, talked to James, and boom, I was like, let's go. I'm ready. Let's do this. And it was it was just kind of a natural fit. Now, I had in the past interviewed with companies like New York Life. They interviewed me fresh out of college, and they were like, oh, you're perfect fit for the insurance world. I also had a family friend that I worked with who was basically life, health, and disability agent. And he begged me to come and work with him because he could see it in me as well. He's like, this is perfect opportunity. This is a perfect job for you. And New York Life said the same thing. And I was just like, you know what? The last thing I want to be in my life is an insurance salesman. So I made the wrong choice. Probably could be retired by now. But it took me a long time to get into this field. But boy, I'm sure glad I'm here now. Started with our company we started with here in Boise.
All right. So when you and I started together, you came in and I had been there, I think you started in like November and I started in like September. And we came in and that was, we were basically, you'd come from the health industry. There's some family things that got you back into Boise, and that's where you wanted to live. For me, I had lost my job. I had gotten laid off, and I was kind of forced here. I had a couple of other opportunities I've talked about in previous podcasts that didn't materialize, and it's like, okay, it looks like I'm going to be an insurance agent. And much like yourself, I had had the opportunity to do this earlier in my life, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. because I don't think I would have had the personality or the maturity to be successful in the industry. It was a State Farm PNC agency that they were bringing people in, and they throw you in a back room with, here's a phone book, let's get you licensed and start calling, just making cold calls all day long was their model, and back in the early 90s. And I had a family friend that says, no, you don't want to be an insurance agent. And I actually have gone back and found him. I was like, yeah, I do want to be an insurance agent. But it's one of those things like, how many little kids say, when I grow up, I want to sell, health and life. Nobody says that.
Exactly.
But as we went through here, so you and I are sitting down. We're across from each other. It's a Medicare shop. So let's go ahead and talk about the company and their business model. So it was a Medicare house. They focused on Medicare supplements, and they came in, and we had 3 or 4 really cool tools that were just exceptional with that particular organization. Number one, we had great leadership. James Case was our mentor. He was our manager. He's actually been a guest on this podcast. He's the one that developed the company introduction that we use. I still teach that, and he's the guy that thought that up. His big thing is we have to be holistic in the home. We are not transactional. We're relationship based, and then they taught us accountability and systems. And we would go in there and we'd do a proper company introduction. We'd do a proper fact finder. We'd go through, we'd get the Medicare stuff. We'd get all the hospital indemnities. We'd get the life insurance. They wanted us to get large life. We never did. We always got just final expense. And then tee up the financial services, the annuities, and that kind of stuff. So that was every house we went into. That was the model. And they want us to focus on med subs, but we also did advantage plans and kind of leaned that way over the years. But one of the things about that particular office for us is, for me, I was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So they said, go out and say these things, and these are the results you're going to get. So I went and I said those things, and those were the results I got. And but it was really, how do I say this? When we started together, I mean, it was kind of just I don't want to call it a sweatshop, but I mean, we were grinding it out. I mean, it was hours on the phone. It was hours knocking doors. And I mean, just trying to figure out this industry. And both of us were in a spot where we have no safety net. If we don't sell something this month, we don't eat and we don't pay our mortgage. I mean, those were rough days.
There was a bit of competition in there as well, if you remember, right? We had
Absolutely.
A pretty amazing team. It was 4 or 5 of us that kind of gathered together under Jonathan there. And we were all part of the top of the office. So a bit of competition between our team to see who was coming out on top for the week or the month. That was fun. Yeah. That was quite motivating.
Not only that is, so we started, okay, so I'm just trying to think here. That was our first AEP. You came in the middle of AEP, and we were still trying to get stuff figured out. And I actually had a really good AEP that year. I think I set a record or something that was actually beat the next year by a person on our team. So our first full AEP with us together, Jonathan Carroll was our manager, and then it was you, it was me, it was Ryan Robinson, and Chase B. Berger. And so there's 5 of us. And if I remember right, we were the number 1 field unit in the country the next year for AEP, for Medicare and for cases sold and things like that. That it was that it's been pretty much the only time in my life where you had 4 or 5 heavy hitters on one team. There's generally 1 or 2. These 2 guys are battling it out. But no, it was a day-to-day basis. And then Chase would disappear for a week at a time, and he'd come back with, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't upload anything in the computer. I sold 36 policies and got $1 million in annuities. What'd you guys do last week? Now, exactly. I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, oh, yeah, I got this. And then I'm like, I'm the man. Then Chase comes back with that way, eating a donut. Oh, yeah, I did this. But I hit putting it in the computer, so I didn't.
That's Chase.
Yeah.
I just talked to him the other day.
Yeah, I'm
recruiting him.
But okay, so we went from Medicare, And that was what our life was. And we were actually fairly successful at it and kind of go from there. So describe how your career worked. Started with Medicare, we started with that, and then just kind of advanced from there.
Well, we talk about the fun and the competition and all of that, but uh, turning to the serious way that I did it was that I really embraced the idea of the whole holistic planning and really just getting in, talking to the people, understanding their concerns and their needs, and being able to help them. And I actually, even to this day, still tell the story when I'm in people's houses of how I would meet with people oftentimes that would just be on Social Security, and maybe they're only getting $1,600 or $1,800 a month from Social Security, and that's what they're living on, and they're paying their rent and or paying a mortgage, uh, and their Medicare plan might actually be really eating into their ability to buy food. So going into somebody's house like that and being able to even save them $40 or $50 a month, they absolutely are ecstatic, right? And that really feels good. It really feels good to me to help people. So, and then, the money just follows, right? If you help people, if you look at it that way, and it's not just about, how much you can write or how much money you're going to make next month, then you just don't even have anything to worry about. It just follows.
Yeah. Now, as we went through here, the business model of that particular organization was if you can sell, you obviously should be in management. And so there was a very clear track for that. And they were very good about promoting the heavy hitters into management if they wanted to go. And so you and I started, it was that first year. And I think it was the next year. I was a couple of months ahead of you, I think, just because I was in the industry. But you and I were both found ourselves sitting in the manager training meetings here. We'd fly down to the corporate things every quarter, and they started wanting us to start building a team. So we started recruiting, we started selling, and I started that a little bit faster than you did, if I remember right. And so I actually recruited Ryan Robinson, that name I mentioned earlier. So he was the first person on my team, still with that organization, doing amazing things. And then the opportunity came up. So you and I did that for a couple of years, and if I remember right, we were always in the top five. As far as production wise, you'd beat me most weeks. I'd come in, I'd beat you occasionally. That we would go through, we're just kind of like this. And as far as the sales, and then the opportunity came up for me to open an office in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, up north. And so they very generously went through, and they said, "Where do you want to go?" And we went up there, and it was a wonderful experience. It really helped me blossom my career. And then you had an opportunity to go through and work at an existing office to take over one of those down in Utah, if I remember right. Now, the point here I want to bring up with this is that as we're moving forward for agents, there are different opportunities to advance your career, and sometimes not all opportunities are created equally. I think that the company had the best of intentions for both of us. They both wanted to grow their own business, and going into an existing office with you, there was some things there that you weren't expecting. Me going into a brand new office, scratch agency up north, that was a whole bottle, can of worms that I wasn't expecting either. And so let me just kind of talk about my experience versus yours. So I walked in there, we had an office that was literally empty, no furniture. We'd run a couple of recruiting events. I had me with one other agent I just recruited. We had a card table with a couple of chairs, and she and I would basically train all day, run appointments. Then about a month later, our furniture showed up. Then we'd bring in a couple of other agents, and the agency grew. And so 3 years later that we actually outgrew that office, we moved to another one, and it became one of the more profitable offices for the company. And we, had a dozen agents in that thing that were all producing, that we were doing really well. And as far as my income went up exponentially because I got overrides and because, again, building a team. And so I went from, 100 grand a year to 300 grand a year, and it was awesome. That was not your experience.
Not at all.
Go ahead and talk about that. And I mean, same company, same leadership, but there's a lot of differences. And really kind of talk about some of the things if somebody's new at this, what are some things to watch for? Go ahead and discuss that.
Well, without being too critical, obviously.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're being recruited into another position of management or responsibility, because they're looking at you, the way you perform, and they're like, oh, well, he can teach, right? He'll teach all these other people how to do what he does. Right? And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But essentially for me, what happened was I was promised overrides that were existing and the ability to grow this office in that northern part of the Salt Lake City area, Ogden. And really what I ran into was an office that had a handful of very stagnant agents that have been there for a long time, were collecting their renewals every month, and weren't really all that excited about going out and working hard anymore. They just were happy with their income level and their production level, and they didn't really care. So I don't get overrides on existing agents when they are collecting their renewals. So anything that they did new was definitely an override, but there wasn't really that much happening. Mm-hmm. That particular office was also opened in an area that was predominantly inhabited by ex-military people. So, probably a third to a half of the community of retirees were on TRICARE for life. Well, you know how fun that is to go up against.
Yeah.
So, we hammered the phones. Like we said before, that was kind of the business model. And we would make 250, 300 dials before noon and maybe set 2 or 3 appointments. And it was really difficult to actually even keep people engaged in something like that because they just didn't see the value in it, and I don't blame them.
So now that's something to kind of really think about. So if you're giving an opportunity to move up, to take over an office and to go somewhere, there's some questions that would probably be a good thing to ask in advance. I mean, as far as what are the agent's current monthly production there? What is the makeup of the community? What is the historic number? Because you weren't the first manager in that office. I mean, we'd been there. I think you were the fourth one in 3 years, if I remember right. And again, so there were some things that were going on with that. That was a project office. There were some things there that were struggling with it, and so. Yeah. And so what kind of questions, if you've got, again, somebody new looking to advance their career, they're given an opportunity, and it's an opportunity, what kind of advice would you give to them? Questions would you have them ask the organization that's offering this to them?
Well, exactly what you were just saying. You do need to study the demographics of the area. If you're going to open an office fresh, like you did up north, mm-hmm. You absolutely should study the demographics of the community you want to serve, right? As far as going into the office like I did, going and interviewing the people that potentially you're going to work with and talking with them ahead of time, that would have been a really good idea for me to do that because I would have learned a lot about the people and their attitudes and what they were doing beforehand, before committing to the position. So, and you're right, I wasn't the first. I think there were three or four, like you said, managers that went in and out of there, and all presumably for the same reason. The one that I know and I did talk to after the fact had the same exact issues that I had. So live and learn, right?
Yeah. No. All right. So let's go ahead. As we're talking about this, so you started as a Medicare agent. You got offered an opportunity as Medicare manager. That again didn't work so well. And from there, your personal life kind of took a turn for the positive, and Rachel stepped into your life. We love Rachel; she's amazing. And you ended up getting married. And okay, she and her career, her family situation, you had to leave Utah, and you ended up moving to Sonoma, California. Ogden, Utah, Napa Valley. Let me just think which one I'd want to live in. All right, so now you're going on in Napa Valley, and at that point in time, I think that's when you left that organization. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, yeah. It was a little bit more steps involved, but basically that's what happened. We had left Utah. I came back to Idaho for about 6 months, and meanwhile, Rachel and I were married and doing a commuting relationship marriage where one of us was on an airplane every weekend. And that just got old for her and for myself. So I started looking for opportunities down in the Bay Area, which is where we're at. And I ran into this posting on, I don't know, one of the job boards, whatever. And it was for this company that would put appointments on my calendar, annuity appointments specifically advertised as 8 to 10 annuity appointments a week, company car, W-2, health insurance, reimbursement for expenses. And Rachel and I were reading. I'm like, read this. I remember we were on a drive from Northern California back to Idaho for something. And she was in the passenger seat. And I'm like, you got to read this. And she's like, wow, that sounds too good to be true. And I said, well, that's what I thought too. I said, but, I'm thinking I should just apply for it just to see. So I did, and I didn't hear anything back. So I thought, well, it's just, a scam. Like 2 months later, I got a phone call from the recruiter from that, and she says, hey, somehow or another, your resume got like pushed to the side or just ended up in the wrong spot. But she's like, I found it and I reviewed your resume and I think you'd be perfect for this. And we really want to talk to you. So that's kind of how it got started with that.
All right, so let's go ahead and just do a quick recap here. So, right here, we're going through. You started no experience in the insurance world. You went in as a Medicare agent. You did really well. I mean, I think it was you cleared 100 grand by your second year, didn't you?
For me, it was about the third year.
Okay, so about 100. So third year, 100 grand. So we're at six figures. At that point in time, you went into management. And there was a drop in your income, if I remember right. We had that conversation on more than one occasion, by about half. Does that sound about right? Or was it even worse than that? Okay, so 100 grand down to 50 grand or something along those lines. You then move, and this is one of the things where I want to talk about, is that one of the things about the insurance world is there's a tremendous amount of freedom with it. There's a tremendous amount of potential income with it, but there's also a tremendous amount of liability and risk with it as well. We're only really as good as the lead systems we've got. And one of the big things about it is going from a captive agent. I was with that organization where we had lead systems. I really loved that color copier. That was one of the things that I missed about it, having to pay for my own copies when I left, and having the internal support, having a manager that I really is still one of my best friends, that I could go to, and there was a brain trust there. I've got this problem, and there's an office full of people to help you. Or, hey, my kid's sick. I've got an appointment. I need to have it covered. Can somebody go cover this for me and do a split with me on it? Or there was a lot of that, and the ability of, I'm having a really bad week. I've got somebody I can talk to and work through with that comes with that organization. And I really valued and appreciated that. Then we moved through that up into the upper echelons of the company as far as, management, and started to take over our own offices and own territories. And we still had that same structure, more responsibility, more earning opportunity. It worked really well for me. Again, same company, same structure, a little bit different. Your income took a hit there, so you left. Now you are no longer an independent agent. You are a W-2 employee. You've got health insurance. You've got lead systems. You've got the opportunity to go there. The commissions were significantly less than you were making where you're at now. But talk about some of the positives with that. What was the big difference there other than, you're W-2, but did you have a salary, or was it only straight commission still?
I trying to remembering back. I think they gave us a small salary for the first couple of months that we were there. Yeah, I think so. It was maybe like $4,000 a month or something like that. Something really small. But the systems, the training, it was a very organized company, and we had regular Monday morning meetings that we drove to in person, and there was significant amount of learning and training to do in order to move into that, which just, well, it's still in the insurance industry. It obviously mainly focused on annuities and single premium whole life. Learning curve there is a little bit rough. It really took me about 3 months, I want to say, before it really started to click. And there was a couple of times during that training period, and I had a manager with this new company that was, almost half my age, and thought he was a hot shot, and he did not think that one of us old guys would be that great to have on his team. So he was not very nice, and it wasn't fun. Let's just leave it at that. But he did teach me a lot, and once I got him out of the way, or I shouldn't say I got him out of the way, but the company recognized that he was not treating people correctly, so they demoted him and they put him into another role. And after, a couple of colleagues of mine that ended up leaving, actually threatened to sue the company over the way he was acting. So,
Wow.
yeah. So they recognized that they had a problem child, and they demoted him and got him out of the way. And after that, boy, everything just turned around for me. And by the end, that was what, 2019. Uh, then 2020, of course, we had the pandemic. But we took only about 6 weeks off, and then we were back at it. We were meeting in people's backyards, in their garages, all masked up, everything. But we were working.
If I remember right, in the pandemic, for me, my business doubled. It didn't slow me down at all. It was actually banner year for me when the pandemic hit. As far as and again, masking up and doing all the social distancing and all that stuff, and it's probably a lot more aggressive for you in California than it was for us up here in Idaho. But the but that didn't slow me down here. So yeah. So you're going on there doing that. What did your income do in that period of time? Again, and now do you remember your comp rates on that? Because I mean, street level on a annuity, it was about 6.5, 7%. And then where we were at with the last organization, we were LOA agents, so we were bringing in about 5. Where were you at here?
When I first started with that company, if you would compare it to that, I was probably at about a 2,
Okay, but what did your
right?
income do?
Well, my income went through the ceiling because I had so many appointments, I had so much opportunity, and I learned how to turn opportunity into sale. Uh, I think in 2019, I didn't really do that much. I think I maybe, because it was an adjustment, right? I started in September and really not until maybe November, December. I think December is when they demoted the guy. Uh, and then going forward. So I probably made less than $50,000 during um, those 4 months there. In 2020, my income rocketed, in my world anyway, up to about $160,000. So the following year, 2021, I actually finished number one in the company with a little over 11 million in premium written for the year, 10.5 funded, and I think I made about $280,000 that year.
All right, so the huge difference there. Now, again, so as we're talking about this, the different models, the so W-2 employee, and the next step to this as we're going through here. And you were totally happy there as far as things were going on, but they made some internal changes with the organization, if I remember right. There was some mergers, acquisitions, some stuff that was outside your control, and things then happened. What happened next?
Well, they were having a little bit of trouble getting new appointments after the pandemic. The company that was doing the seminars and generating the appointments was having a hard time getting people to come back to seminars down there. California was definitely a lot more restrictive when it came to those things, and even to this day, people walk around outside with masks on still down there. So it is what it is. But uh, they were having trouble generating. So the owner of our company said, "Well, I'm just going to stop buying the new leads from them, and we're just going to keep working the people we already have. We're just going to change focus, and we're going to more of trying to get the AUM instead of the annuity or the single premium whole life. We're going to focus on trying to build that side up." For whatever reason, that's what he thought was going to generate more income for the business and for himself, which was exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do. So after a while of trying that system, what I found was I was showing up to people's houses that I had been to for the last 3 years, and they are basically, "Hey Keith, nice to see you again. Nothing's changed here. No updates needed. No, nothing going on, and we're still really happy with where our money is. So have a nice day." After some conversations, reaching out to the owner of the company, reaching out to the director of the company, and really just saying, "Hey, you know, I'm your number one guy from 2021, and I'm having problems, and my income is suffering, and this is not sustainable." And basically, for whatever reason, they chose to just keep going in the model. So I chose to leave.
All right. Now we're going to go ahead and put a pin in it right there. This is a first of a two-part series with Keith Petersen talking about the different career paths you have. And as far as with Keith, where he has gone through and he started with Medicare, ended up with in annuities and financial services, and the path that he's gone from there. So we're going to go ahead and thank you, Keith. We're going to go ahead and end this episode here. We're going to start another one here just for next week. This episode is brought to us by leadshop.org. Again, your one-stop shop for CRM and for filling the room when it comes to seminars. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. Stay tuned next week. We are going to go ahead and finish this conversation with Keith, and we're going to talk about some basically how did he continue going on, and it's kind of mind-blowing where he's at now compared to where he started. So, and the process that he went through in that. So thank you so much, Keith. Stick around here, and we'll go ahead and get this started for next week. Thanks so much, and hope you have an amazing day.